Good morning, Friday. Again. Welcome back to Aggressively Healthy. We've been on a roll a couple weeks in a row now, but it's a hot topic in healthcare and the whole thing in terms of the exercise, nutrition, and all this world becoming more focused on health. So some things I just want to talk about a little bit is I never thought truly in my life that I was going to end up in a place that I felt anger and frustration towards the medical community and a little bit of the male population for what we've done kind of to women's health. And the women's health world is really chauvinistically driven. And the problem with it that I believe is not only have men been running healthcare, but men have essentially tricked women's leadership into buying into their programming so that the women's leadership can enhance their financial gain. And I do believe that. And that might start a lot of controversial thoughts. And women doctors, I am not speaking to all of you, right? I'm not. I understand the trials and tribulations of being a physician. You have to follow the rules. You got to play within the kind of context of where you are. But at some point, we need to recognize that women's health is truly suffering. And if we don't get a grip on it now, we're really going to lose a grip down the road, and we will completely lose our pediatric population. And the reason being, kids, whether you like it or not, listen to their parents. They pay attention to their parents, and they focus really hard on everything their parents are doing. So lifestyle, exercise, biopsychosocial, socioeconomics, all of it become apparent to the child, deleted of conscious thought, but in their subconscious, they are registering associative resultant feelings to how their environment is. So if you're in an oppressive style healthcare institute, if you don't like your job and you go home and you're miserable and you're beaten down and you're a middle-aged woman and you are menopausally inclined over the next, you're 45 or so, 10 years are coming, your emotions are out of whack. And then you start blaming the world. And then you have your doctor tell you what you're feeling is not real. You're now going to trickle that down to your kids. And the pediatric population is going to suffer from that. And we have another generation of people that then believe healthcare doesn't exist. So I think we're trying to force people into habitual lifestyles that become healthy. The cool thing about that, and I once said to you, I was like, it'd be pretty neat to start a health cult. Because if you took the cult-like mentality and you put it into healthcare, I think you'd have the perfect society. Everybody driving for everybody else to feel better. Do you think, independent of medical therapy, society's mentality in terms of the new push for healthcare, do you think this is going to transition into a healthier society, or do you think it's still going to split where certain people are going to really drive towards health and then certain people are just not going to actually give it the effort they need?
It kind of depends on how we're evaluating like the actual standardization of health. Because what I think is that disparity will increase to a certain extent. Like, it's no different than the rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
Right.
But I think because of so many pharmaceutical interventions that are becoming more and more accessible, people are going to kind of cheat it a little longer.
Yeah.
And because of this, we're so focused on making sure that full integration occurs, not only on the medical side, but the lifestyle, the behavior, the knowledge, and just the comprehensive approach. But a lot of that will be somewhat pushed back by taking, let's say, a GLP-1.
Right.
And then they'll be confused that, so they're getting healthy from their perspective or the recommendation of a doctor that doesn't do what you do.
Right.
So that they'll lose the weight, their blood panel gets mildly better, but then at some point, do we run into another epidemic of health-related issues because of the prior intervention was incomplete. Not that it was wrong or bad.
Right.
It was just incomplete.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right solve for that person. And I can see it kind of getting better at the surface level, but over a longer timeline, I think it's actually going to get worse.
One of the most crazy eye-opening experiences I had in the last probably 3 weeks was I was in the shower once and I'm thinking about how do we improve the care to our clients? And I'm in The office is in the gym. Me and you see each other every day. I see the trainers every day. The trainers see my staff every day. Our staff see each other. We all are one big staff, and everybody talks. So the communication of physicality, exercise, nutrition, by default is exchanged between the two of us, right? So everybody under the two-headed monster of the healthcare facility called RTS, you get built in exercise, nutrition, and medicine in a consolidated form with conversation behind the scenes all the time. I used to sit in on what was called like multidisciplinary committee, where you'd have an oncologist, you'd have the surgeon, and you'd have the primary care team. And essentially the primary care team would present a patient, 45-year-old male, blah, 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 high blood pressure, with cancer. Fine. The surgeon would then present the case and say, this is a surgical case. We do believe surgery is the best option, medical care, adjuvant chemo, or maybe neoadjuvant, or whatever we need to do, but surgical options are here on the table. And then the oncology team would come in and say, all right, well, here's the chemotherapy regimen to go with the surgery, and here's how we'll play it in. And this seems like a really good catered care. Now, the equivalent to that in my mind, once I realized, was as if the pharmacy just sent you a pill. Like that all should have already been done in medicine. The thing missing in all of those meetings, not a single time did we talk about like, all right, this person has cancer. Their caloric needs are so much different than anybody else. When somebody's in an ICU, critically ill, on a ventilator, all we do is talk about their caloric needs and how do we respiratory caloric degradation because the work of breathing, blah, 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 blah. Not a single time in cancer rounds did we ever discuss the nutritional status of the cancer patient, who doesn't actually end up dying from the cancer. They die because the cancer makes their body so sick, they muscle waste, they become immune suppressed, that the cancer then overtakes them and they die. So yes, if we're not going to treat root cause, we can go right after that. But how do we then explain that the missing link from the hospital to here is that education on exercise and nutrition? Because I believe exercise and nutrition is where you will build the habits to allow the medicine to work. The mistake of the regular practitioners out there in healthcare world and physical medicine world, where you guys lie in terms of the physicality on a floor, how do we show them that the connectivity between that and then your medicine is paramount, right? And how do we expose them to an environment where the training staff, the nutrition staff, and everybody is working together to make the medicine work? It's actually the opposite to what the hospital preaches.
Where do you want me to start there? That's a
lot.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, how do we convince the people that it is the opposite? Like, the medicine is not going to fix anything. Almost to the point of it would be cool to be able to like withhold. Prove to us that you're willing to like not drink the next beer to deserve the medicine to help your fatty liver, right? How do we get them to realize that the medicine isn't the silver bullet? It's not the magic bullet. It's actually the baseline movement.
Honestly, I think it's part of it. People know. Like people take a look. Like look at someone in your family 25 years older than you, and then ask yourself, are they what they are because of their lifestyle and their behaviors and their actions over the last 60 years?
Yep.
And what pill, what medical grade surgery intervention is going to fix that? I think it's almost common sense at this point that it's failing. I don't think that's something that we have to be either bashful about saying, shy about saying, and I don't think it would be met with much of a resistance of saying that there's something really broken with how people are being cared for. Yeah. It's whether or not they care. Yeah. And to me, it always comes down to personal responsibility. It's no different than someone complaining that, like, you know, they don't have the money, they don't have a high paying job. It's like, well, what did you do to deserve or earn the thing that you're looking for? Yep. You know, did you go to college? Did you graduate top of your class? Did you go to a prestigious school? Did you work your ass off when you interned? Like, what did you do? Show me the evidence that what you're asking for, you've put the work in for.
And how about when people come to you and they say, what do I do to get in shape? Yeah. How do you answer that question? Because they're really foundationally explaining to you that they know nothing about anything related to health.
The first thing is, what do you want? And what's keeping you from getting there?
Yeah.
Like and that's for any part of your life. Like when you're feeling stuck, like evaluate what you actually want.
Right.
Because if you say you want to be healthy, and then you also have to agree that you want to get up at 5 a.m. if that's the only time you can train.
Yeah.
That you want to eat the food that's on the food list, that you don't want to eat the food that's at McDonald's, that you know, like, so it's not just saying yes to the result.
Yeah.
It's taking ownership and saying yes to all the processes that come in place.
Yeah.
Because if you really do want it, you'll change your behavior. If not, and this is where I'm like totally laid back about,
yeah.
if you want to be in your bed at 5 a.m., that's cool too.
Yeah.
If you want to eat McDonald's, great.
Right.
But then you really don't want a healthy, functioning body that you can be proud of.
Yeah.
And that's my hard delineation.
And I think from a societal standpoint, like, you have to have some accountability, because the healthcare cost then comes down on the other people. And I don't think we can totally blame the consumer, because the education basis from doctors to the consumer has been zero, embarrassingly so. Because doctors have Pavlovian style trained humans to walk to their door, knock on the door, and they get given a pill. It's like, if you broke it down, imagine how many people every day spend an hour of their day driving to a doctor's office to bullshit about something they don't actually care about. I still feel tired. I still have blood pressure. So the person that has had high blood pressure, diabetes for the past 6 years on tons of blood pressure medications and on insulin comes and sits in your office. You ask them questions, they're still feeling shitty, and you give them the same amount of medication. Tell me the variability you're changing to make their life better. Or are you just dragging them down the road, right? I mean, you're addicted to a pharmaceutical to give you a result that you're not getting. The result of the medicine is never achieved, because the result of the medicine is to stop, say, the blood pressure or stop the diabetes. It never does that. It just stops the symptoms of it, but you still die from that disease. I do think, though, it's a weird societal pressure to almost not be so focused on your health, because it's not cool. And I think we're changing that trend, right? Like, yeah, it's cool to be a doctor. And I love walking around and be like, oh, I'm a doctor. Yeah, that used to be cool. Now I am embarrassed to say I'm a doctor, because most doctors do not represent who I am. I'm actually a healthcare professional. I look it, my body feels it. I feel strong mentally, physically. That's what a doctor should look like. In the training world, it's easy. Most trainers are usually fit. What do you think about training staff when you walk into a facility that are overweight, bad body fat percentage? And I mean, maybe work out, but like, resultants of their labor might not be as profound, or they might not be such a good example of healthcare. How do we even allow that to evolve?
The first thing I try to evaluate any professional is how good are they at the job.
Yep.
Right. So, and I know there's a huge debate in the fitness circles of like, if you're in fitness, should you look the part? And there's a part of me that does believe that should be true. However, it's hard to tell if I meet someone for the first time who's in the industry and he's not up to my standards. That doesn't mean that a year ago he is in way better shape.
Yes.
You know, because we want to have these like binary before and after type thought processes. Yep. When that guy could have lost 100 pounds in that year that I didn't know him.
Right.
And he is absolutely crushing it by every objective measure. And he is 100% capable of working with people that I have no place or no business working with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's part of that. The other thing is everyone's got their own deficits and disadvantages.
Yeah. Huge.
So for me to just take like a superficial look at someone and evaluate their level of competency based on how they look, I think is a little unfair.
I agree.
But it comes down to the effectiveness of who you're working with. Because even at some point in my life, I was just working with people that were a little behind me.
Right.
And who I work with now, 20 years ago, I shouldn't be working with.
Yes.
So, you know, it's part of the evolution of any professional to continue their own personal journey so that they can impact, influence, and provide more benefit to more people.
Absolutely. And I think one of the major, I said it a little bit as a devil's advocate, because I also have a lot of clients who maybe their body comp hasn't completely adjusted. They're working really hard at it, but they are healthy. So their insides are actually really healthy metabolically. Now, the end result is hopefully that body comp changes because that's healthier.
Correct.
But they're making the attempt. And it's weird because in life, we always walk into jobs and submit a CV. And when we submit our CV, we're waiting for whoever the boss or whoever's going to hire you to look through it, submit it to their friends and whoever else is going to look at it and be like, hey, is this person a good candidate? If you're the Grim Reaper, you're searching CVs all day long. And I view myself as sitting there as a CV enhancer for the Grim Reaper experience, right? So if you come to me, I'm going to adjust your CV so that when you are walking through life and that thing is reading your metabolic profile and your health, you don't just get killed. Because a lot of us carry a CV that is unhealthy, not fit for the job of life. And the job of life, today on Instagram, I went off a little bit, but like when you have kids, you have a responsibility. When you're an adult in society, I believe you have a responsibility to all of the youth around you to lead by example. So even if you're 18 and there's a 15-year-old, or you're 30 and there's a 22-year-old, if you spit on the ground and punch a door, well, that person's going to think like spitting on the ground and punching a door is okay. How do we promote people realizing like life is a job? We don't need to make it a stressful job, because if you actually end up valuing yourself, the stress gets all relieved. But how do we teach people that parenting, walking down the road as a good example for the person next to you walking down the road, like all of these leadership skills, I think we need to re-embrace. The root cause of that, I don't really know where it came from, where people started devaluing their health, but how do we re-inspire, and where do people go wrong evaluating themselves?
Almost everything, this is a very biased opinion, but everything that I've seen to move people in the right direction, or people who stay stagnant and not really make any significant moves, almost everything is tied to the identity they associate themselves with. Right? So, and I come from, like kind of your classic Italian American household where the father figure, the dominant male figure was basically there to do three things: support, provide, and protect. Right. So part of that is ingrained in my belief system of how I should be for my family, how I should be for my business. So I bear a fairly heavy cross. And if I didn't do the things to take care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, whatever else, I wouldn't be able to bear as big of a cross. And then someone else would bear the cost of me not being able to do my job that I perceive is of highest value to me. And I think that's where people come or derive this stupid term of motive. Like, what are you motivated to do? You know what I mean? Because in all honesty, everyone's motivated to do something. It's whether or not that motivation points them in the right direction.
And I mean, it even goes back to like experience with sports. You played football. If every person on your offensive team did their job, you should score a touchdown every play. Is that, I mean, almost correct. Unless the play's designed like, all right,
at least 5 yards, success, a net positive.
Like if everybody did what the coach designed it to do, you would get the achieved result every time. I view life like that. Like I may not know the exact team I'm playing on, but I if every day of my life, I do my job. I'm a physician responsible for healthcare. I am now in a gym environment. I need to promote everybody 24 hours a day around me to be healthy. Why? Because that is my mission statement. And I don't really know, it's got to be a weird feeling to go to work as a doctor and be in the hospital all day long. And I can't put myself back into the brain I was. I can only know how I think now. But that was such a weird moment where I was pushing health every single day and like lecturing people on being healthy. And then I was going home and just being horrendously unhealthy. It's living two lives. And sorry, docs out there, if you guys drink and stay up late and fucking screw off on your health, you're literally living a double life. Like that's two lives. It's like the police officer in Glastonbury that just got caught for robbing homes. Like you're a cop by day, but you're a criminal by night. If you're a doctor by day and you post on Instagram your charcuterie board and you're pounding wine on the fucking weekends, you're a liar. That's all I can say. I mean, a spade is a spade. It's like in the health industry, right? We just had this discussion. They have giant bodybuilders now promoting protein bars. Like at some point we got to kind of figure out this gray zone. How do we promote that muscle build? because we talk about it a lot, with not being over muscle, right? Because people might say to us, well, you're just promoting muscle, blah, 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 look at the bodybuilder. No, there is a gray zone we all live in. You taught me with the diabetes talk. You were like, you brought to light, you're like, diabetes is a thing no matter what. Your sugar could be perfect. It's still doing damage. You're always a diabetic.
Yeah. Just how diabetic.
Yeah. So how do we relate that to kind of the situation I was talking about?
Part of it is just battling misconceptions and like what most people get wrong about their idea of health or what their idea is of fixing their health. You know, most people think, or if they follow us and they're like, oh, I don't have the time, bandwidth, or inclination to be in the gym 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Great. You don't have to. I would actually say if you can give me 2 days of about 45 to 60 minutes per session, so at most 2 hours a week, which is what, 4% of a week, not even, like you could put yourself in a drastically better health cohort, drastically better. So part of it is just breaking down the misconceptions and what influencers, like where do people get their information?
Yeah.
Because they're not getting their lifestyle advice from their doctors.
No.
So where do they go? Social media,
Yeah.
they Google it, maybe AI,
Yeah.
whatever. But most of it is like now they have to go through the plethora of information to figure out what's real, what's not, what could work, how to implement, and then still get really no feedback. And we know the best plan is the one that actually changes in time. Because if you're doing it right, your body changes.
Yeah.
So therefore your plan should change.
Yeah.
Your nutrition should change. All these things warrant some kind of oversight, feedback, and course correction.
Yeah.
Where are you going to find that?
Yeah, you can't. It's even like when I do lab reviews and there'll be vitamin levels and things that are fluctuating over time. We're always chasing our tail, right? Because your metabolism is never stagnant.
Yeah.
I believe as an adult, you need to be able to adjust your opinion based on data. So we have always been data driven. And I think once you can admit your faults, like when I was a doctor and I was drinking and I then figured out that was bad, I'm going to admit that was stupid. When I was a parent and I would drink sometimes until I was drunk and I would be around my kid, like that was stupid. So when my oldest now, but got to a certain age, I had to stop because I didn't want to be the dad that was like, you don't do things. And then I'm like, right, that doesn't go well. I'm done with those days. I can't lie to myself anymore. There was just a hot topic that came out on the seed oils. Now, I'm going to say this again. Michael Ranfone and Marko Lujic have never wavered for a minute on anything related to topics of health being extreme in either direction. We've never said eat only X fat, eat only Y carbs, eat only protein, keto, blah, 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 vegetarian. We've always said you have to have the right amount of protein, you have to have the right amount of carbs, and you have to have the right amount of fat. And that is independent of the types. They're all necessary. Just like sugar in your blood, which is the most devastating substance to your body when it's not metabolized well, but it is the most favorable, the most usable form of energy and metabolic health that the body has. How do adults finally be adults and actually base an opinion on data and not emotion? Because I believe healthcare then will change. Because it's an emotional response to how you think you feel, rather than looking in the mirror and being like, I look like I'm 80 and I'm 40. Get your shit together. How do we get people to do that?
Well, I think that's a fantastic question for me to ask you, since 6-7 years ago, you were faced with this crossroads of like you wanted to change. So the precursor to change is to want to change.
Yeah.
And then I actually have never asked you this, but like when you started doing some basic day-to-day data collection, what did you start to say, well, oh my God, I'm in charge of this? Yeah.
I mean, the first time it was true, like shame. I just felt terrible. I got asked to come to the gym and do a workout. In my mind, I was this like athlete, and I was like, oh, I'm an athlete. I used to play sports. And I come in and like, I remember Gianna, who was training, we had a 20-pound kettlebell. Or whatever. Yeah, 20, I don't know, 30 pounds, whatever. I mean, now I would chuck it out of the window. And I was walking with it, and we were doing down and backs, and I failed. Right? Like, Deanna was next to me. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I put it down. And I thought at the time, I was like, whoa, that was such a hard workout. Then I was looking around and like everybody else was just going back and forth. 65-year-old women, 50-year-old dudes, 20-year-old, just everybody outpacing me. And I just said, like, I can't do this anymore. And I truly looked, and it was a mirror experience. And I was like, done. Like, we're done. I remember we flew out to California. I was hungover, whatever. And I finally just said, like, I can't do this anymore. This feels horrific. And that experience came down to just realizing, like, I do have control over it. And once you handed me the keys to my car, I didn't even know I didn't have them. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, yeah, I'm driving around. You're like, no, Marco, here are the keys to your car. This will reinvent your experience in life. Once I realized that, it was a totally different thing, because when you have accountability for your healthcare, it's very easy to manipulate. But I think as adults now, that came down to me being able to say I was wrong, right? Like, I was the doctor that thought I was above the law, right? And the law of health, nobody's above it. You think you are. Right? I mean, there's a lot of millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires, whatever. The day they're dead, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. Like, it's done. So if you're going to, number one, bank on this next thing, I don't know, that's up to you. But like, I got this time right now to make it really good. And I think that was the final thing that like clicked, because I'm not scared of dying. I just really don't want to die. Like, there's no reason that I would want to, because I really like what's going on now. And that experience with health empowered me to become, I think, more valuable in my own mind in the professional world. I mean, shit, I got healthy and stood up and opened my eyes and just walked out of the hospital. Now, looking back, I actually thought about this a lot over the last 3 days. I don't know why, and it's interesting you bring that up. I do believe I drank because socially, I was very like nervous to keep up with the Joneses. So like I have a outgoing personality. I'm loud and whatever, but I actually sometimes in like interactions with people might be a little shy, or in public I might not be overwhelmingly outgoing. And I think that came out with drinking, and I allowed myself to become more socially engaged. And really what it came down to is I could blame the booze for doing stupid shit. And I think that was the ultimate accountability, right? Because once you get rid of that, all the stupid shit you do, you can't blame on anything. And I look back, how many times were people like, oh, I was so drunk last night, guess what I did? It's like, the booze, that was you.
Yeah.
Stop blaming the fucking booze. So I think that was the biggest kind of like kickstart to me. And then clearly seeing what you got going on, you felt good, you looked fucking great, you're muscular, feeling strong, everybody around you's like, oh, I want to be like that. And then I was like, yeah, I want to fucking be like that too. So I did it. And it feels spectacular. And I tell everybody there's no looking back. Like, once you're in a position where you have control of your health, you'll never give it up again. But what is your take now on these extremes, right? Because like, we've never really wavered, and you never have either. Your training style, you were 20 years ahead of the curve with what you were doing back then. How have you maintained a level head? Because now we're very different in our paths, right? Like, you never really had that like bloated, you got overweight, you couldn't, like, you trained the whole time, you did your thing. Like, how did you not end up kind of just committing all to non-health, or, like, how did you manage the gray area?
This might sound really funny, but I always had like role models.
Yeah.
I always had people I tried to emulate.
Yeah.
I always tried to be the dumbest guy in the room or the least successful guy in the room. So I was basically finding access to people and places and environments that I shouldn't have been in, so that I could elevate whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
And part of it, you said it earlier, is like, there are a lot of different types of mirrors that provide a reflection for you to assess yourself.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just looking in the mirror, but maybe looking at your bank statement, looking at someone else's business, looking at someone else's marriage and being man, I really do want that.
Yeah.
So if that person has what I want,
I'm going to go get
then
it.
Fundamentally, they must be doing something better than me at a thing.
Yep.
And I don't even know what that thing is.
Yeah.
So the most useful piece of knowledge is that you don't know exists. And that's the pursuit. It's always trying to figure out the gap between what you want to do and how to get it.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because I watched from a stand back. I put in all this effort. I went to fucking college, Yale, blah, blah, blah. I went to med school, blah, blah, blah. I did this and that. I went to residency. And I finished. And I remember operating a ton, and I was like making a paycheck and feeling great. But then we would go out. This happened many times. Like you and I would be in the same place and everybody was talking to you about their health. Yeah. And I remember being like, fucking, I'm a doctor. Nobody wants to ask me about their health. Why? Because I was slugging beers. Like, yeah, why the fuck would you ask me about your health if I don't know how to take care of my health? And I think that's a very hard thing for doctors to do because the hospital allows you to hide, right? Because, well, he doesn't have great bedside manner. She doesn't have great bedside manner, but she's a great surgeon. Yeah. Wonderful. So it's a prick who you're going to let cut you open. Or they're not very good bedside, but they're an amazing endocrinologist. Wonderful. That's the person you want to be around when you're in up Schitt's Creek with your endocrine system. Like, no, people. Stop protecting doctors too. Personality traits as a doctor should matter, I believe. If you are not the exposure of health aesthetically, don't be front-facing to the healthcare industry, right? Like the Rockettes. When you go to the Rockettes at New York City for the Christmas special, if you got out there and they were between 5 feet and 6'5", and none of them looked alike, it would not be the Rockettes. Part of healthcare is being healthy. I don't know where we lost it. If it were me, there would be a physical fitness test. It would not be a limiting barrier to entry because there are handicaps. There are physical ailments people can't. I had a wonderful friend in med school who was actually in a wheelchair, and he is a spectacular doctor. All day I would send people to him. I'm not saying that at all. But yes, if you are a fully capable adult, physically fit, and you can move, and you just sit on a couch, and you do not do what you should do to present healthcare to the population as it should be presented, you don't deserve to, I believe, lead in healthcare. The gym industry has always been leading edge, I think, in healthcare. The hospital industry has helped push it down. Supplements come with the gym world, and pharmaceuticals come with the quote-unquote healthcare world. We need to view them as the same thing. What's your take on supplementation? What's your take on pharmacologic use? Because as now, quote-unquote, I am the doctor, fine. But you present and you interact with people in the population that ask you these questions all the time. So from a non-MD standpoint, now having been around this quite a bit, what is your take on pharma, supplement, and how we can use them with people in the right amount? Gray zone stuff again.
I always try to look at it from like leverage. Yeah. Like what are the biggest levers that we can pull to get you to where you want to be? And if you were going from a strictly medical perspective, like someone's overweight, type 2 diabetic, high cholesterol, blah, 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 blah. Should we give them the pill? Should we give them metformin? Should we, cut their stomach out? It's like, well, how about we just teach them how to eat? You know what I mean? How about we get their daily step count to 10,000 steps? So, and we know
that won't save any money either.
Right. Or time or whatever. But my point is like, we have to evaluate this on what is the most easily accessed point of entry to make a long-term change. Yeah. So I would like to think that if someone could double their step count in 2 to 3 months, they will have tremendous benefit for forever until they stop doing it. You know what I mean? Right. So, and I'm all about pharmacology. I'm all about supplements when it is warranted and when we know it is going to provide the biggest amplification on the behavior that they're exhibiting. Yeah.
Now, if you have a kid in a classroom and they cannot handle themselves and they're so bad and they threaten somebody at the school, they get kicked out, right? If they're in the public system, that ends up pushing them even further. They might get kicked out of there and not let back in schools. So there is 100% a barrier to entry for children into our education system, correct? Yeah. Do we blame children for all of their actions? I'm assuming their environment probably is predictable of how they act. So if there's a barrier to entry where those kids do not get a formal education by the regular system due to their behavior, why don't we do that with adults? So if the third time Johnny comes to visit with diabetes and he's still smoking and he's still drinking, why do we have to deal with him? Why can't that person be sent, just like a child would be sent to a facility where they deal with the non-appropriate kids for school systems? Why don't we send that person to the facility that's for non-appropriate adults for healthcare? And if you go to one of those facilities, it has to be public knowledge. And until you fix yourself, you don't get out and you don't get healthcare, forcibly making what you're telling people to do. That's extreme. You can't really do that. How do we force that mentality upon the healthcare cult of the world? Like, guys, we've started a lot of cults, right? We start the ones where you believe if you drink some stuff, you go to Mars. The other one where if you drink some stuff, there's like a bunch of people on the other side that'll help you do stuff. I don't know, all these imaginary cults, right? Can we start one that's like pretty cool about health? Because usually healthy people will get along. So how do we transition that mentality? Because then it becomes re-entry for those kids is what? A pill. Those kids get treated as if they're bad with a pill. Now they get re-entry into school with a pill. Guess how humans get re-entry into the healthcare system? With pills. We have to change that. But it is a mentality that a pill, a supplement, a med will override your habits. It never happens. How is that something that we're missing in terms of the message being sent?
It's the belief that they don't have control.
Yeah.
That they can't actually do something about their situation.
Yep.
And then this proposition that is of such high value that it can be fixed with these simple stories.
Yeah.
That it makes total sense because of the education process, specifically surrounding health.
Yep.
Mental health, personal responsibility, physical health, that they're all separate things that are just out of arm's reach. So I think part of it is actually having, like, this is the nature, or this is what education should present. Enough information so you can make the best decision on how you want to proceed. Yeah. It'd be one thing if someone was smoking and drinking and they grew up in a household where that was just the norm.
Yep.
It wouldn't be surprising that be like, you don't have to do that. It's like, what do you mean? My dad does it, my mom does it, my brother does it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's the inheritance aspect of being in that environment, that maybe family history of behaviors that have led to whatever medical diagnosis it is. So some people don't even know what's possible. Right. And that's why changing your environment is one of the easiest, most effective ways of changing your behavior.
Huge deal.
And like when when you say cult, I just think of culture. Yep. It's in the word.
That's exactly right.
And like that's why our culture here is it is a health cult. It is. I mean, it's 100%. But I hope that like the messages that we're putting out there isn't self-serving. Yes. Like most cults are associated with like the leader being, held on this pedestal, and like I'm not even going to question the leader's talk. It's like we're giving it almost, agnostically. Yeah. So that people can then take it and run with it on their own accord.
Yeah, I mean, so much so to the point where professional athletes, big wigs that we work with, never post them consciously. Why? Because that's an easier person to take care of, right? If I get a famous athlete with perfect body comp and they have a little tweak in their arm, that's nice for me to deal with. I'm dealing with a Ferrari. I just got to repaint a little bit. I post the people and I want to promote the people that are everyday life professionals. Your profession, your CV of healthcare is being judged every single day. So much so to the point that if you went mostly to cemeteries, almost all of those people were sick when they died, right? Not many had a healthy profile, obviously, because they died. If you went and you looked at the average person that dies under the age of 50, they're not normally well exercised, eating well, sleeping well. Like, does this make sense? Yeah. Like, death makes sense. I remember seeing people every day, and maybe I'm a little bit like psychopathic. I don't know. I can transition from emotion of super depression to super excited because in terms of a hospital, you have to do that. Like, you might walk out of a room where you literally say to somebody, you're going to die. And then you go into a room where you're like, congratulations, the operation went great, right? But like that transition and that allowance in medicine, I think, promotes people to allow kind of the accountability to be removed from the consumer. And when we end up in a situation where you have somebody coming in where they're not doing everything we've said, they're not adjusting their environment, they're not adjusting the people around them, they're not even looking to the other side of exercise nutrition. They have no focus in their healthcare, and they come in. They're the ones that think the supplement, the med, the single pill is the one thing that's going to fix them. And I think if we don't override those habits, if we don't start to get people to see the culture of healthcare, that when you walk in here, we're promoting the health of the life professional, the person who has to get up and get their kid to work, who has to cook food, who has to go clean the house, who has to drive the car, who has to go to work and function. That's who we really want to focus on. Your target has always been there. So much so you went from super high-end athletic purely to Gen Pop.
Yeah.
Now, the word Gen Pop bothers me. And I don't like it, right? Because the word Gen Pop says, oh, generalized population. But I believe the general population in here is not Gen Pop, right? Like, how do we tell them that this sort of training, the minute you walk in this door, you're in the top 10% of the humans on this planet immediately because you just walked into a facility that has exercise. We should keep showing them that. You are just progressing your ability to perform more and more and more. You've captured that here. How do you tell other gym owners, other exercise professionals, other healthcare facility managing directors, admin, how do you provide that environment for your people, and how can they do that as well?
There's two things I think about now that you bring it up. The first one's a law. It's called the law of the lid, meaning no team, organization, business can rise higher than the level of the leader. So if you're not really, living and leading in congruency, your business, your organization, your professional sports team is automatically capped, right? So that is the responsibility of the person in charge to set the standard, and then be vicious with keeping that standard and not allowing your tolerance to drop.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I think about. The second thing is actually from a book. It's a great book called Turning Pro.
Yep.
And it's nothing more than whatever you do in your life, you should think about being a professional, not an amateur.
Yep.
Because a professional finds the resolve, puts forth the effort, and denies the distractions that we all have of doing what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
To the best of your ability.
Yeah.
If that's being a mom, if that's being a doctor, if that's being whatever, you're going to max it out.
Yeah.
So
and
it's a lot of self-talk.
And I think a big thing too is like, we end up talking about these experts, right? I'm a practitioner of metabolic medicine. I do love hormone therapies. I love healthcare. I don't know if I can ever consider myself an expert, because at the end of the day, yes, am I way more educated than most people and most doctors in this field? I would sit down and argue with all of them.
Yes.
But am I an expert? I haven't yet gotten somebody to live forever. And I don't know, in the NBA, is there the perfect guy who's made 100% of their free throws, or the female that's made 100% of their free throws, or hole in one on every golf course? Like, there are some games you may never master. But if you're not willing to try, that's when you fail. And I think a lot of failures are just unwillingness to try, to be healthy, and our system is set up to give you a way out. Marcus, what do you think, buddy? As a younger gentleman in this world, healthcare to you means what?
I would say being able to perform at whatever it is that your endeavor is at a high level. Like you said, you may not be perfect at it, but your willingness to try it is extremely high.
I like that. And I think in the healthcare world, if you're going to promote health, you got to have that willingness. And people come in here and are willing to try. And I think we promote that environment. Any plans for the weekend?
Nothing, just working.
Working? What do you got going on? Anything fun? He also does
a grinder.
Yeah, he does music videos.
Yeah.
Should we? Maybe we'll do a music video next time.
Let's do it.
I mean, we should.
The summer, we got to get you guys on a boat.
Listen, everybody out there, number one, if you can tell people to be healthy, do it. Who cares? Number two, do something good for people. Like, if you're taking away from somebody else's life experience, stop. Does that make sense? Like, just don't do it. If you feel like you're walking down the road and you look at somebody, you don't like how they look, just don't tell them. Just keep it quiet. I also think if you're walking down the road and you see somebody and they're looking good and they're dressed up nice, be like, hey, man, you look fucking great today. Because you know what? Sometimes people like to hear that. And they're clearly, if they're trying to impress the world, give them the compliment. Make the place a better environment. We are the environment. I don't have any more tidbits of thought otherwise until next week.
Yeah.
God bless.
Peace.